Hello and welcome to this session where we're going to be talking about DealStreetAsia's Data Vantage. I'm Deepshikha Monga, an editor at DealStreetAsia, and I'm joined by Andy Haspati, the head of ASEAN research at DealStreetAsia.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session.
Let me give you a quick introduction of Data Vantage. Last year, we launched the platform, a comprehensive data product that comprises a database, which includes Singapore and Indonesia registered companies, and provides key information about them, such as their shareholding, funding rounds, valuations, and financials. The Data Vantage product also includes our twice-weekly newsletter that brings you the latest updates to these companies based on regulatory filings. As well as our monthly reports. We do up to 4 a month that cover fundraising by startups and investors, as well as feature company and sector deep dives. In fact, our latest report launched yesterday was on the funding secured by companies founded or co-founded by women in Southeast Asia. Let's move over to the database. Andy, do you want to kickstart it for us?
Thanks, Deepshikha. So whether you're looking to boost your deal pipeline by finding companies that fit your criteria or find out shareholders in privately held companies, Data Vantage is here to assist you. In the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll be covering certain functionalities of the Singapore database, which is derived from Singapore's Accounting and Corporate Regulatory Authority. So let's begin with the homepage. Let's go to the data menu on top of our website, and then go to the database. Just wait for a few seconds, it will load. And if you already have a login, since you're attendees of our summit, you will have free access until March 10. So you should already have the access and you can get started. Okay, so let's begin with so we are at the homepage. By default, what you see is a list of companies that have updated their filings with Singapore's ACRA, listed by recency. By filings, we refer to company filings that reveal important changes in the company, such as the change in paid-up capital, directors, shareholders, and even auditors. So one thing to note is that the amount shown under funds raised is based on the filing received directly from ACRA. It may differ from the announced funding due to the difference between announcement date and regulatory filing date. Also, it's worth noting that ACRA filings only reflect the equity funding received by a company so far, while an announced round could include debt and other components.
Yeah, and this also means that convertible instruments issued in a round are reflected when they're converted into shares at the next round of qualified financing.
True. If you prefer not to see the list by recency, you can choose to arrange them by most funded or highest value by clicking on the blue tabs at the top of the list. Okay. So we can now move on to company page, and let's do one use case. Let's choose Moglix as example of a company that we want to look deeper into. So I just type the Moglix into the top search bar and choose the relevant legal entity that shows up. So if you want to track this company over a longer period, you can click the follow button. You can find it just to the right side of the basic information. So the first section shows the basic information of the company, such as the year of incorporation and its business activity. We have a quick snapshot of the company's valuation and financials, with the last updated financials shown on top right of the box. Next, you can hover your mouse over the bars to show funding obtained each year. So this is a handy tool. a good way to look how much a company has raised for a given year. Under the current shareholders section, we see the entire list of shareholders and the value of their holdings as well. We can sort the biggest to the smallest shareholders using the arrow button. And next, let's check the investment round section. This section tells you which are the approximate funding rounds along the company's fundraising journey. And by clicking the arrow by date helps you to sort from the oldest filing to the newest one. Moving on to the directors section, this shows you the appointment and withdrawal of directors through the history of the company. And this is probably the more interesting part, the financial section. Okay, so we have three major components in the financial section. We have profit and loss, balance sheet, and cash flow section. The ratios here is to give you a quick overview of the health of a company over the years. And finally, we come to the most colorful section called network visualization. So the bubbles represent directors and investors in the company. So by hovering over the bubble, this will let you see the full name of the individual or entity. And here we can also toggle the view by clicking on the nodes, investors, director, or both. And two hops would allow you to see extended relationships of the current shareholders or directors, with other companies that they have invested in or involved with, either in the past or at the present. So let me stop right here and pass on to my colleague Deepshika to show you how we use the advanced search tool and the compare function. Please go ahead, Deepshika.
Sure, thank you, Andy. Let's use the compare tool. Very simply, it allows you to compare two companies. For this example, we're going to look at CoinWorks and Funding Asia. Sorry. This is the holding company for funding societies, or Modalku as it's known in Indonesia. So we've chosen two companies in the same sector. And now we can look at the basic information. We can look at how much the top 5 shareholders own collectively and individually. It also allows you to see the comparison in terms of revenue and net profit, so on for profit and loss, net cash flows, assets and equities, balance sheet, and ratio analysis. So this is really when you have two companies in mind and you want to look at them and see how they fare in comparison with each other. However, if you're looking for to search for a company in a sector that you might be interested in investing in, this is a tool that allows you to narrow down your search. Say I'm looking at fintech companies, and all the fintech companies in the database will appear here. You can narrow this down further to companies that were incorporated, for instance, in the last 5 years, or use the additional filters, which include revenue growth, have they been funded or not, is there a particular valuation that you want to look at, and the results will accordingly be filtered. This is a handy tool for investors looking at a pipeline, looking at potential deals, yeah, it's a pretty handy tool, like I said. Let's move on to investors and directors. The investor section allows you to see how much investments a particular investor has made. When we talk about investors, we're talking about SPVs largely. So you can see that Spring Seeds has invested in 112 companies and the amount that it has invested. Similarly, for directors, you can see how many board seats a particular director has, and we can see that Wilson Chuacha of East Ventures sits on at least 41 company
41.
boards. That's it about the Singapore database, and we introduced the Indonesia database that I would like Andy to talk more about since that's new.
Yeah. So we launched the Data Vantage application around July, and we managed to update the Singapore data. So we have around 2,000 plus companies that are registered in Singapore. And for the Indonesian data, we have 300 venture-backed companies. I know that it does not seem a lot, does not look a lot, but I mean we vetted these companies to make sure they provide value. And plus if you subscribe to Data Vantage, you can request any company to us, any company registered in Singapore or in Indonesia. So we can do that for you. We can get the data if not available already on our database, and we will provide it to you. Okay, so let's go to the Indonesia database. So to access the Indonesia database, you can go to the left sidebar and find the Indonesia menu located under Director menu and Report menu. At the moment, as I said, we have 300 companies plus, and we get the data from Indonesia's Directorate General of General Legal Administration, or locally here in Indonesia, we call it as Direktorat Jenderal Administrasi Hukum Umum. So this is legit data, official data of company deeds from the AHU. So as shown earlier in the Singapore database, you can sort this list based on total shares, total paid up capital, and latest update, and so on. Now let's pick one company. Say the use cases is let's go with the company that will soon launch its IPO, which is GoTo. The purpose is to identify who are the benefactors from the IPO, for instance. This is just an example of a use case, right? So in the basic information section, you can identify the business sector, obviously, because it is a super app. We classify it as a super app. And you can identify the total paid up capital and the date when GoTo's company deed was updated. There's a couple of things that users must know about the Indonesian corporate filings. So unlike the Singapore database, the Indonesian government does not require company to disclose their financial metrics. That's one. And secondly, it is almost always the case that paid up capital that is specified by on the company's deed or akta perusahaan is not reflective of the amount of private investment that has been received by a company since inception. So basically it doesn't reflect that. So for example, here in GoTo's filing, the company's total paid up capital is valued as at 969 billion rupiah, which equals to 67 million, while we know GoTo's valuation and all the investment that they have received is worth in the billions of dollars, right? So nevertheless, the data is very useful to understand the shareholding structure and see how it changed over time. This is one special feature that we have. So in the shareholders section, you will find the list of investors in GoTo. Bear in mind that this shareholder list includes both investors in Gojek and Tokopedia. So you see here, Taobao China Holding Limited is the largest entity. Actually, Taobao invests several times using affiliated entities. So these are entities under Alibaba Group Holding. Okay. In this particular data set that on Goto, we have the full historical data since inception, since the company was still using the legal name of PT Aplikasi Karya Anak Bangsa. So this name changed to PT Goto Gojek Tokopedia after the merger last year. So in the following section, you can see how the share ownership actually change over time. Let's check our education minister, for instance, Nadiem Makarim. Here, so the oldest data that we have is December 2015. I think, let's hover to the, yeah, okay. Here you can see the stake was at 20.5% in December 2015, and gradually it changes with the fundraising, and right now it's at 1.6 after the pre-IPO round recently. Okay, so this is hundreds. I mean, for Goto, this basically more than 100 entities here, so it's pretty complex. So let's move to the next section, the authorized capital section. So we have authorized capital and issued capital. So basically here you can see the share classification. Bear in mind that these are not investment stages. Instead, this is not rounds, right? So not series rounds. So instead, this reflects the different rights held by shareholders. For example, even though the founders hold only a fraction of the shares, the voting rights may be bigger. In the last section, we find the board directors as well as board of commissioners. It's interesting to look at who the commissioners are. They tend to represent, different entities with the biggest stake in a company, right? So we're at the bottom of the Goto page. I also want to show you another use case. So, for example, in Indonesia, there's a limit on how much a foreign entity can own a share in e-wallet company, right? So let's take the limit is 49%. So let's take, for example, Shopee Pay. So I'm gonna type Shopee Pay right here. Yeah. So we can see there are two entities here, three actually. So one I think is the PT Indigo Trading and C Money, which is the Singapore parent. So we can look here that the Indonesian company controls 51%. But if you're curious to know more about this Indonesian company, to identify its ultimate beneficial ownership, you can check it on our database as well. So let's type in PT Indigo Trading. Now we have two more Indonesian companies, right? So it's layered, multi-layered. So maybe we can check PT Indigo Wahana Investment. Yeah. Okay, there's two more companies. Let's try again, Indigo Wahana. The other one. Okay. So here we can identify the UBO of the company. So we can ascertain that, I mean, these are Indonesians, and 51% of Shopee Pay is owned by domestic entities, which basically in adherence to the regulation. So that's it for the Indonesia database. Go ahead, Deepshika. Maybe you want to highlight other products. Sorry, Deepshika, you're muted.
I'm sorry. We have a couple of questions, and maybe we can take a few before we close the session. There is a question on how do you verify the fundraising information? Andy, do you want to answer that one?
We obviously, when it's filed on ACRA or AHU, we take that as valid. It's accurate. It's what's reported by the company to the legal authorities. So that already validates the data. But when we found discrepancies with what the company has announced, we tend to double check with them and reach out to them whether this information is accurate or not. Because we update every day and we update hundreds of companies every day, it's a lot of update. We don't necessarily check everything, only when we believe it's necessary to check. And we publish 2 newsletters per week. And in these newsletters, we update our subscribers on what's available on that given week. And for those data, we tend to look more closely. So yeah, that's how we do it.
I would just add that besides relying on an algorithm to source the data, we're also, like Andy said, we're also verifying information ourselves. Our newsletter, for instance, when we write about these companies, we go beyond just the register of members, for instance. We look at meeting resolutions and additional documents to verify that the information we have is complete. So that those are all the steps that we're taking to make sure we have the most accurate and most up-to-date information. And I think some of those extra steps also differentiate us from our competitors. There is also a question on how is our product different from our peers, our friends. And I would just probably answer that in addition to what I've already said about the fact that we make all these extra efforts to verify this information going back to the companies sometimes. There is also the news advantage that we have. There is also the reports and the monthly deal monitors that we cover. So with Data Vantage, you don't just get the database. You get the news, you get the analysis, you get the reports, you get updates with our newsletter that go beyond just the headlines. So we're also trying to make more sense of the news as companies announce them. It also, of course, allows us to also break stories ahead of others. So yeah, those are some of our key advantages in this area. I don't see other questions, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we're definitely a more complete ecosystem in that sense. So we have the data, we have the reporting, we have the insights, and we have the analysis, which we do. Now we publish around 3 to 4 reports per month, and on top of that, 2 newsletters every week. So yeah, it's a great offering, I think, from us. And in terms of how complete our data is, if you subscribe, if you have access to ACRA data, you practically have, around 70-80% of, startup information in Southeast Asia. Because a lot of, Indonesian companies registered in Singapore because of, it's easier basically to set up in Singapore, and there's also tax consideration. There's a lot of Indian companies, a lot of Vietnam companies as well. And plus now we have the Indonesian data. This makes us the most complete, I think. And we're expecting to launch, to expand more to Malaysia and Vietnam this year, hopefully. Yeah, we're already making a way towards that.
Andy, you preempted the question about whether we're looking at including data from other ASEAN countries in the near future. That remains our intent. No, it's great. You read their mind. We also plan, of course, to add India and China data. That is something that we track on a regular basis, and we think it'll give investors a clearer picture of what's happening in Southeast Asia versus these other markets as well. So that's something that will further differentiate us from competition.
Yeah. Although for these two database, they're for the China and India, they're based on company announcement, right, Deepshika? And just to add to that, we have every quarter we publish, our analysis of VC and PE fundraising trends, and we will have the data, our complete set of data on our, database as well. So you can, track VC funds, see how they're doing in terms of fundraising and their, their exit and their investors and whatnot. So, more complete data is coming.
Okay, there is another question. If the users can get the info directly from Accra, why do they need to use Data Vantage? That's a good one.
Yeah, it depends on what you need. If you need, if it depends on your appetite, right? If you only need one or two company per month or whatever, I mean, you can download. I mean, no problem. But there's also that, necessity to calculate and validate whether your calculation is accurate, right? But if if your appetite is bigger than that, obviously, subscribing to a service like this is going to be much cheaper than you constantly purchasing data. Just bear in mind to download a complete set would require around 80 to 100 Sing dollar per company. Even more if you need past historical data. So it's quite costly.
Yeah, Advantage is trying to make sense of that data as well. So it's not just about getting the information, but making sure you get it regularly as and when it's updated. And of course, providing additional context with news and other information. Are there any other questions?
It's been a great question so far. Audience, please feel free to post questions.
And if there aren't any, maybe we can just thank the audience for taking the time to listen to us and go through this session. As Andy mentioned earlier, our attendees have complimentary access to Data Vantage until March 10th. We also have a 1 month free trial, a 1 month trial, not a free trial, for $208. Please use that if you want to explore the product more. If you have any questions, please write to us at research@DealStreetAsia. I'll just repeat that. It's research@DealStreetAsia.com. And we'll take your questions offline. That's it. Thank you so much, everybody. And I hope you stay on for the remaining sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deepshika.